Okay, I'm distracted, so excuse me if I forget some shit. Um, but I'm trying to get like out of the you funk I'm in. All right, so let's get on to the comics that I'm reviewing because it's reading recommendations. All right, these are the only two that I didn't like. This one was really just because of the fact that I felt like the Green Lantern one, I couldn't. If you told me the Green Lantern one was actually a young adult one, and they had misput it, and they put it in like the kids version, like DC themselves, not the library that I got it from, but they had like it was a misprint. I wouldn't have told you the difference. I wouldn't have known, or young adult, or vice versa. I couldn't tell you the difference because the Green Lantern one was actually the best one I've read of that line. That's why I was almost like maybe the kids ones are better because they didn't need to feel they didn't feel the need to focus on like, oh, you gotta get the love interest in here, you gotta do this, and there wasn't a checklist. That book was not a checklist. It seemed like the person like wanted to tell this story and was very passionate about the story that they were telling, and they told that story. This one feels like it, but it just feels like this was like a first draft, maybe. I don't know. It was very lame, very lame, and I feel like even if it was young adult, it would still be lame. It was kind of like it was watered down. Everything was watered down. I know it needs to be for kids, but it was just like extremely noticeable. Like I don't think kids want to be talked down to, and you're basically talking down to kids. Not to like an insane degree, but to a degree where I could tell, at least. But I still got through it. It was good enough. I'll never read it again. I'm glad I got it at the library. There were several times where I saw it at Newbury, and I almost bought it just because it was cheap and wasn't. It was a pretty long book for $10. I think the Green Lantern one was shorter. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I never got it. Ended up buying it. Next one is Sandman. I'm sorry, but I'm not a Sandman guy or a Neil Gaiman guy. There's people that are. Hell, Stephen King himself is a Neil Gaiman guy. In fact, he says, Neil Gaiman is simply put a treasure house of a story, and we are lucky to have him in any medium. Which, that's like the highest honor you can get. And I'm not just saying from Stephen King, but like, it's the way he said it. That's like, wow. Like, he really likes Neil Gaiman. And I get it. I get what people like. I'm not going to be like, oh, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I'm going to go read my comics, and my comics are, like, terrible, and I'm one of those people that you should never listen to. No, I mean, and that's how I feel. I feel like I'm one of those people that, like, likes all the bad comics and doesn't like the good comics, and, like, he's, like, a Philistine in comic form. Well, actually, Philistine, I think it can be any form. It doesn't have to be specifically movies. But I always think of Philistine as like people that just will go see like a Minions movie and won't watch a Pixar movie. Like it's straight out won't watch a Pixar movie because it challenges them too much. But I think this is the only comic I don't like that I'm like I don't like this at all. Like no enjoyment out of it. Not even the first one. The first volume I did like. The first few I did like, and it just got to a point where I was just sick and tired of it. And if that is okay, that was just a terrible volume. I just need to move on to the next one, but take a long ass break before. It kind of worked. Like the first part of it I liked, but then just I don't know. I feel like the biggest thing about it is that it's too wordy and it's too like sophisticated for its own good. And to understand what I'm saying, you kind of have to read the book yourself. I do still recommend it. I do still recommend you get into Sandman because it is a book that a lot of people like, and it could just be me. I'm also not a huge fan of myths and mythology, but I like Thor. I actually liked when Thor was in the Sandman comics. It wasn't the Thor from the Marvel universe because Thor is pretty much public domain. You can use him in any comic. I actually think that Image has done a comic of him. Or like a version of Thor. But speaking of Image, this was probably the highlight of the year. And it's funny because it's Paper Girls. Yeah, you gotta grow up again. But like this reminded me a lot of it and if I watch this show, which I really need to do, but Stranger Things, like that had kind of that vibe where it's takes place in the 80s, I believe. And it's about like this groups of friends and one new kid, which I think that was the exact thing from exact thing. I think it was the exact no, because he wasn't it? It was one new kid. I thought was Beverly the new kid, new girl. Yes, it's exactly like it because it was a new kid. I think the fat guy is a kid. I think the fat guy's a kid. I think the fat guy was a new kid too. I don't know exactly. I'd have to rewatch it. I'm surprised I don't remember exactly what happened in it, because I've seen that movie like 5 times already. And I don't even have the movie. I keep renting it from the library, or well, one time was from Redbox, second time, and then of course the first one was on theaters. But anyways, it was very it, because they also spoilers. There's a monster. It's really good. A lot of twists and turns. It's not like it, like it's not like a carbon copy of it. Like, oh, it's just it all over again. No, there's enough in it to differentiate it between that and it. It's just that this is the vibe was a lot like it, where there's a monster, a group of friends, and it was very similar. It was I loved it, and it ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm glad, so glad this is one from the actual Rutgers Memorial Library, not an intro loan, so I can just get it right off the bat. And I think they have the full series. I believe that they when I was there the other day, like they had like a bunch of them. I think there's only like 6 of them. I don't know, but the next one I liked a lot better. Not a lot better. I mean, they're around the same. It was also a highlight of this week was Outcast. This is by Robert Kirkman, another kind of horror book. And while I will say I liked Walking Dead a little bit more, it's only because Walking Dead gets much better as it goes along. I would say the middle part of The Walking Dead is the best part. Maybe like mid, like maybe volume 3 onward was like really damn good. The first few volumes, I keep saying the first few volumes, especially the first volume of Walking Dead, was pretty slow, because there wasn't a whole lot happening. It was kind of just like a survival thing, and it just expanded into what it is now. And then Outcast was kind of like that, but it was more fast paced. So I guess the first volume is a little bit better than Walking Dead, but Walking Dead as a whole is better. I'm definitely gonna solicit volume 2. This one I'm gonna take a little break from another Vertigo book, which I hate. But I liked it a lot better than Sandman, and that's Transmetropolitan. My biggest issue with this book is kind of like saying your biggest issue with The Simpsons is that it's a comedy show, or Family Guy is that it's a comedy show. And my biggest problem with this is that the political stuff. I'm not a huge fan of like them when they get into huge politics and talking about like presidency, like that kind of politics, not like politics like gender and everything, and race and everything like that. I'm talking like when I talk about president. This whole thing is Tim trying to be president. They keep talking about presidency and elections, and it's I don't know. They make it a bit more interesting because it is Warren Ellis, and because the character is like the main character, Spider Jerusalem, is like 100% deranged, and it's entertaining to see what he's gonna do next, or how he's gonna react to certain things happening around his world. So it definitely did keep my interest, and I think that because the next volume is gonna be something completely different. It'll be much better, I hope. Knock on wood. The first volume was amazing. I do highly recommend getting to that series. Now this one's really funny because the third volume was actually better than the second volume, and I'm really glad I gave this Image book a second chance. And that's The Wicked and the Divine. The artwork is the best part of this series as a whole. Like even this second volume, the artwork was amazing, and especially in this issue, they have like different artists for different like look at that, just look at that like detail. That is so damn good. That must have taken hours to do. Just that like thing, this panel, that panel must have taken an hour. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to do that. It's so good. The artwork is amazing. The best part about it is definitely the artwork. And that's saying a lot because the story is also good and the writing is also good. It's a little confusing. Definitely not a straightforward narrative. I couldn't tell you what the hell happened sometimes. Like, it's like very confusing. Like a lot of like weird ass shit happens. Like, what's going on? But it's definitely more straightforward, I guess, than other books have been like that. I keep saying but it's definitely one I recommend. If you don't mind something that's a little confusing, then I would highly recommend this one. New Adventures Volume 2. Feel the exact same way as it felt for Volume 1. It's okay. I really liked Adventures Disassembled. That was the best one. It's actually, no, this one was a little bit better. I liked what they did with the Sentry. And how they handled that whole thing. It was kind of neat. But it was just kind of like okay. It wasn't like it's definitely better than the Batman one, which I also said was okay. Next one was Scalped. Much better than the first time. Still a little shoddy and like shoddy and like kind of like wasn't totally like it wasn't good all the way through. A lot of like bits that I was like it was a bit too fast paced, I guess, like too much going on. I feel like I should just focus on one or two characters, or one character in his story, of course, not just one character itself, obviously. And then I keep hiccuping, and then finally the Flash. A lot better, a lot better. No, it was just as good as the first volume. And I'm definitely gonna solicit a bunch of books. Actually, I have a bunch of books I already solicited. So it's gonna be Flash, book 3, Scalped, book 2, Outcast, book 2. We're getting the Divine, book 4. A lot of them. I'll take a break on Sandman and Transmetropolitan, just so I don't have like 14 books coming out in one time. That is it. Whole big list of reading recommendations. Only one I would not recommend, and even if any of you guys watching are kids, I hope you're not. But the only one I wouldn't recommend is the Batman one. Everything else was good, and Sandman was just not my cup of tea. But everything ranged from good to great to amazing, and the best one was Paper Girls. And then so let's do a like a summary. Pretty bad. Not my thing. The best out of the bunch. Highly recommend. Huge recommend. It was pretty damn good. Good. Great. Okay. Good. And pretty great. So, all in all, I give it like a whole bunch. If I had to give it a grade, I give it like an 80% probably. And Paper Girls and well, that too, I guess. Everything but Batman made it that way. Maybe an 85. I don't know. I'm done.